Hello everyone, this is Aaron Fitz from ATF Gaming, and welcome to my opinions on the 2020 NASCAR schedule that was just released today, a couple hours ago, hopefully by the time this video gets released. I have some pretty strong opinions on this, and I want to voice those to you. I also want to get discussions going in the comments section, so be sure to let me know what you guys think about all the changes. So, before we start any of this, we all know that NASCAR needed a schedule shakeup, but we didn't expect it for 2020 because the tracks are still under the same contract, and it's the last year of this contract, so we didn't really expect it for 2020, but last couple of weeks we've been hearing rumors about some minor changes. Somebody caught, the Atlanta website had a different date on it, which wasn't accurate anyway, but and other stuff just changing. And the last couple of days we've been hearing a lot of rumors that were more accurate as far as what actually happened. And today we got the full schedule released. There's some pretty big changes for being in the limitations that they are with the TV contracts. I got a pen here. The TV contracts, the track contracts, while also trying to please the fan base, who is growing more and more frustrated by the week. So we have a couple things to talk about. We'll talk about the changes, we'll talk about my opinions on them, and then we'll talk about, what I think they could have done differently within the limitations they have. Again, I don't know the full limitations, but I have a pretty good grasp of what the tracks were wanting versus and what the TV schedule wanted, Fox and NBC. So, first big change, we'll just go in order of the schedule. First big change is Atlanta moves out from the second race of the regular season, and we immediately go into the West Coast swing after the 500, which I think is a good idea. Now, if I had a choice for a second race, I would have chosen Phoenix. But I think Vegas would have probably been my second choice with that West Coast swing. Because every racing series struggles with getting great views in the first race of the season. I mean, obviously for NASCAR, Daytona 500, biggest race of the year, and usually shows that with the TV ratings. So it's the biggest race of the year, and having something to back that up with good racing is also good. Now, if I had my say, I would have done maybe a Richmond or a Bristol, or a road course or something like that. But again, we have the limitations we have. So out of the West Coast swing, I would personally rule out Auto Club. We've been there, done that. That doesn't work. ISM out of the three can have the best racing, but it's so spotty, and we'll get into that more later with the other stuff, but I think Vegas is a good second option, so we'll stick with that. So we have Vegas, Auto Club, ISM, that's the West Coast swing. Then we go to Atlanta, so Atlanta essentially moves back about a month in the schedule, and I'm fine with that. Atlanta has been hindered by weather issues in the past because it is so early. So I think moving it back a month will be more beneficial. Atlanta would be basically happening this week, right? Or last week. It would have happened last week is where Atlanta would have been. So we're getting closer with weather, and I think Georgia will be fine by that point. So we have Atlanta. Then we have Homestead. I think, that's a good place for Homestead if it's not the finale. But that obviously brings along, the fact that Homestead isn't the season finale anymore. I know a lot of people disagree with me on this, but I personally think Homestead is a great finale race. Especially with the current schedule and the current format we have so many mile-and-a-half tracks. And if you look at all the mile-and-a-half tracks, what mile-and-a-half track consistently brings the best racing? Homestead. It's always Homestead. So, if you Again, ISM's not a mile and a half track. This is nothing against ISM. I think Homestead is a good track. Now, of course, with the season finale stuff, if we're rotating the race every year, or maybe every 2 years or something like that to make it more reasonable, I think that's great. ISM's a good start. I think, especially with the renovations of the track and everything, that's a good start. But anyway, we'll get there later. Homestead, I have my notes right here, by the way, if you're wondering why I'm looking down all the time. Homestead, I think that's a good place for it. It's right after Atlanta, so you can go. I mean, same thing as what we've had before with Daytona and going to Atlanta. When I went to the 500, you had to go to Atlanta to get back. For me going to Michigan, so you had to go through Atlanta. Same thing with Homestead. Um, you'll have to go through Atlanta to get to Florida. So, I mean, I think that's a pretty good thing. That would be a great, if you're looking for an extended vacation. That's probably going to be right around spring break time, too, realistically. So that's not a bad idea, having a, kind of a, I guess it would be a week vacation. You'd go to Atlanta on Sunday and then go to Homestead. But that's just, thinking a little bit too far. Then you have Texas, Bristol, Richmond, Talladega. That's a good set of races right there. I think we'll be able to keep the momentum if we haven't lost it already. Dover after that. Martinsville. This first race moves later in the schedule. It's now on Mother's Day. B is going to be a night race, which I think is a great idea. We've been waiting ever since Martinsville officially got the lights. Year ago, 2 years ago. We've been waiting for them to do a night race. We thought maybe it would start with the truck race, but no, we're going to go smack dab into the Cup Series race. I'm going to assume all three races are going to be at night. That would make sense anyway. But that's a good start. Cup Series, night race, Martinsville, and that's right before the All-Star race, so I think that's also a good trendsetter as far as we go to Martinsville. Then we have the All-Star race, then we have the Coke 600. So that's another good section of races. And really, if Dover doesn't flop like it sometimes can, we have a stretch of Bristol, Richmond, Talladega, Dover, Martinsville, All-Star race, and Coke 600. That could be a really good stretch for the racing if Dover doesn't flop. And Martinsville doesn't have a repeat of what just happened. But even if it does, it's still a good race. It'll be Saturday night, so I think that'll be good. So I think if Dover doesn't flop, that's a really good stretch of races. Then we kind of dip down into some of the races that we're kind of stuck with because of the track contracts. We have Kansas. Who cares about Kansas, honestly? No offense to people who like Kansas, but it's one of the few cookie-cutter mile and a halves we have left. I mean, other mile and a halves like Texas, they've been altering the track so that it's not the same, and it's one of the few cookie cutters we have left. We don't need to go there twice a year. We definitely don't need to have it in the playoffs, but I can get back to that later. We have Kansas, then we have Michigan. I'm a Michigan boy. I've been to a Michigan race. You do not need to go to Michigan twice a year. Even once a year is a bit much, honestly. It's not a good track. Again, we'll see what the new package has to do with it. But then you go to Sonoma, first road course race. That'll be a good one. If I had my choice, I would have put Sonoma after Charlotte to kind of keep momentum going, but that's fine. Then we have Chicagoland. Then we have the Pocono doubleheader. Let's talk about the Pocono doubleheader. We have no clue what the logistics are going to look like yet. So, is it going to be two different race cars, one race car? Is it going to be two separate qualifying sessions? Is it going to be, results of the first race? Is the qualifying for the second race? Or the way I would like it is basically treat it like an endurance race. It would make the teams have to think outside of the box a little bit, have to, prepare for 800 miles on a car, on an engine. That's something they haven't had to think about. Yeah, teams probably won't be too happy with that, but as fans, that's a new thing that we could try. So what I would do is basically, do the first 400-mile race on Saturday, qualify for that, do all the practice for that, do the 400-mile race, award the winner, and then same cars are impounded with some limitations, but cars are impounded. No qualifying. You start where you left off. Do another 400 miles. I think that's not a bad idea, honestly. I also I'm I'm fine with the doubleheader idea, and I think it's a good idea to try it at a track that definitely doesn't deserve two separate dates. Pocono would have been a good option. Michigan would have been a good option. Um, those are the two that come to mind. Dover maybe, but I think it's a good idea to try it now, see how fans react to it, see how, if camping goes up, if attendance goes up because you have more action in one weekend. I'm assuming there'll be Truck and Xfinity that weekend too, so that could be 4 races. Maybe sometime in the future we can throw the IndyCar race in the same weekend or something like that. So that would be cool. That's a good way to maximize what is otherwise a boring event. So that's the Pocono doubleheader. That's my opinion on that. Then we have Indianapolis moving back up to pretty close to where its old date used to be. It's taking the place of Daytona on the July 4th weekend. Now, what it used to be, it was Daytona and then Indianapolis was the race right after it, I'm pretty sure. So we have the Brickyard, which they said last year they moved it out of the July race because it's too hot. So now you move it to September. It's still pretty hot, but maybe not as hot. The whole reasoning is you want to make it more interesting to be the regular season finale. Then you move it back to July. Still going to be hot. Don't know what you were expecting. Indianapolis needs to get off the schedule. We need to go to the O'Reilly Raceway Park instead. Then you have Kentucky, another race we can do without. New Hampshire, another race we can do without. But New Hampshire moves out of the... No, they were out of the playoffs last year. That's right. New Hampshire. Then we have a 2-week break. I'm okay with this. I know some people might not be. I'm okay with this. There are a couple reasons. A, Olympics, yes. NBC covers the Olympics. They're also covering NASCAR at the same time. That is understandable. I get that. That allows NASCAR to have a presence at the Olympics, similar to what they had last year with Dale Jr. It allows them to promote the rest of the season. I think it comes at a good time because we're only 4 races away from the playoffs. We have a road course race coming up. We have the Daytona cutoff race. It's a good time to promote NASCAR, in addition to, obviously, the Olympics, giving us a break from NASCAR. It's a long season. I'm sure the drivers will enjoy 2 weeks off to spend with the family. That's going to be right around... It's going to be a little bit before kids go back to school, too. It's going to be end of July, beginning of August, so... That'll be a good time for drivers to spend with their kids, maybe take a trip with their kids before they go back to school. So that's something to think about as well. So I'm fine with that. I know some people might, but I'm personally okay with that. Then we have Michigan. Again, doesn't deserve 2 races, but we're stuck with it anyway. Watkins Glen, I'm fine with it there. If I had to choose, I would probably put Watkins Glen immediately after the 2-week break and then do Michigan, but that's fine. Then we have Dover, doesn't deserve 2 races, but it's not in the playoffs anymore. This is, Dover is coming after Watkins Glen, 2 races before the playoffs start. I'm perfectly fine with that change. Then Daytona. This is the biggest issue I have with this schedule change. Daytona is the regular season finale. Yes, it's going to create some crazy instances of, drivers who are not locked into the chase, have no way of making it in on points, trying to drive their way through the field, and possibly wrecking people, who knows, to get the win and make the playoffs. You don't have control over your own fate. We're going to see drivers who are good on points fall to the back. If it comes down to lots of people in points, and you have people that as long as they finish, top 20, then they're making it. They're going to fall to the back. They're going to be nowhere to be seen for this entire race. That's not what we want. That we already have some of that in Talladega. That's not what we want. We also have, Yeah, just not having enough control over your own destiny is what I have the biggest issue with. Also, if we take a blast to the past, we have the whole issue, the Richmond Gate or whatever we ended up calling it with Michael Waltrip Racing of, team orders being given in order to help the driver get into the playoffs. This is going to be at the forefront of an issue with Daytona, I think. Team orders, if there's any track that you can give team orders to, it's Daytona and Talladega. And it's going to be really bad, I think. Um, yeah, but there are just so many other options. The Brickyard was a horrible idea. I'm just putting that out there. I think Daytona is a horrible idea. I don't think Watkins Glen would have been a good idea. There's not a lot of good options because a lot of the good tracks that are left are now in the playoffs, which I'm fine with, but that doesn't leave a good race. So there are options, but it would take kind of a restructure of the playoffs in order to do. So I'm not okay with this, but we'll see how it works next year. Now we get to the playoffs. So we probably just had an insane race at Daytona, probably some scandal going on. Then we go to Darlington, still on Labor Day weekend, so we're moving the playoffs up a bit. I'm not quite sure how that works logistically. Because Darlington's on Labor Day weekend, but now it's starting the playoffs, so we're moving the playoffs up like 2 weeks, which I'm fine with. I'm perfectly fine with that, getting that started earlier. I think we'll get it started before football season starts at this rate. It'll be close, but so we have Darlington now starting the playoffs. Richmond is keeping its playoff date. Now we're moving the Bristol night race to a cutoff race in the first round of the playoffs. That is a fantastic idea. That might be one of the best ideas they have put in the schedule is moving Bristol into the playoffs and the cutoff race. It's already a marquee event. The Bristol night race could be considered one of the, Triple Crown races or whatever the term is now. Excuse me. I think it's a great idea. Me and my family went to the night race last year. We were surprised that it wasn't full. Bristol night race has had great attendance. It's a huge stadium and usually it's full. But recent years it hasn't been. This is something to reinvigorate that, and I think it's a great idea. So the first round of Darlington, Richmond, Bristol, I think that is a great first round. That is going to bring lots of drama, lots of beating and banging. All three of those tracks are very aggressive tracks. I think that's a great first round. Second round, we have Las Vegas, Talladega, Roval. I think that's the same as what it was last year. I might be wrong on that. Talladega might have been in the first. No, Vegas was definitely in the first round last year. So that is something to think about. But that's a good. You have two kind of wild card races. Roval not as much, but Talladega for sure. If I would change anything, I'd put Talladega first. So there's no incentive whatsoever of any single driver falling to the back. But obviously, the winner of Vegas, they're not going to care. Because the only thing they could worry about is playoff points, but I don't think they're really going to care that much about that. And then the Roval, we saw it last year. It was super costly for Jimmy Johnson, so I think that's a good race. The third round of the playoffs, we have Kansas, Texas, and Martinsville. First of all, Martinsville, great idea to be a cutoff race. And the cutoff race for the playoffs. We saw it with Joey Logano and Martin Truex Jr. with that rivalry brewing. Move that to the last race before the playoffs. That's it. Truex doesn't have another chance to get back at him, assuming he doesn't make the Final Four. That's it. So it's going to be a very intense race. Now, what I'm not a fan of, this is the only gripe I have about the playoff schedule as of now, is Kansas and Texas, back-to-back. Kansas does not deserve a playoff race at all. There are other options, I think, that could do better. There's not many options. If you look at the schedule, there's not many options, honestly. But I think they can do better. I think that'll be a good place for maybe a new track to come into the schedule in 2021. Texas, I'm fine with being in the playoffs. That's usually a good track. Martinsville, like I said, great idea. So now we get to Phoenix, the ISM Raceway being the finale. If this is leading into them rotating the finale every year, great idea. Like I said earlier, that's a great idea. I'm all for it. But if not, then I don't see it being a good idea. If this is like a permanent thing, I don't like it. But if it's part of a rotating cycle of tracks, I think it's a great idea. You have 3 flat mile tracks in this series. You have Phoenix, you have New Hampshire, and you have it's just those 2, right? Phoenix and New Hampshire, right? I'm not missing. Richmond kind of, but not really. I'm not missing anything else, right? It's Phoenix and New Hampshire. Why are we making that the finale when 23 of your 36 races are at 1.5-mile tracks? That's not a good representation of deciding a champion that also resembles somebody who's been successful at those kind of tracks, because that means 4 out of your 36 races are raced on this type of track. Congratulations, you're good at 4 out of 36 races, you win the championship. I mean, already this system infuriates people because all you have to do is win 1 race to win the playoffs. I mean, it's already infuriating. Now you're adding a track that is already on a small part of the schedule, and you don't focus on it as much. Which is why I liked Homestead, because as of right now, with the current schedule, again, lots of limitations here, Homestead is the best option. It's the best 1.5-mile track we go to. Atlanta can rival it sometimes, but Homestead is the best 1.5-mile track we go to. I think it deserves to be the finale. But if Phoenix is better than what it was a couple weeks ago, because that was a horrible race, and it's the start of a cycling of tracks, I'm fine with it. So those are my brief opinions on the schedule. We talked about some of the things I would have done differently throughout as we went through the schedule. Obviously, lots of limitations here. I could go into, what I want to see in a 2021 schedule, but I think that's a separate video. We need to wait till next year on that, or maybe towards the end of this year. Because we have to see. We have a brand new package that has only been tested at like 3 tracks, and we're already making schedules for next year, not knowing how that package is going to race at Pocono. We're having a doubleheader marquee event at Pocono. We have no idea how this package is going to race at Pocono. We have Michigan. We have no idea how that's going to react, because Michigan's coming right off of that 2-week Olympic break. So we need to come back with a bang, but we have no idea how this package is going to react at Michigan. We have no idea how this package is going to react to Indianapolis. Who knows? Maybe it'll be a great race this year with the new package, and it might deserve to stay in the spot that it's in. But no, we're going to move it to July, where nobody's going to want to go to the race because we're in 90-degree heat, and it's a long and boring race. We're already with that issue in Indianapolis, so we don't know what's going to happen. I applaud NASCAR for trying something different. I know fans are going to have an issue with the schedule, but I applaud them for trying something different. We have doubleheaders, we have new races in the playoffs, new finale race. The only thing that they didn't try was midweek races, but I think they tried, but the tracks didn't want it, and the TV didn't want it. So I think that's something we might see for 2021, but I think this is a good start. There are some issues with it, but I think this is a good start. So be sure to leave your comments in the comment area below on what you think they could have done differently. Again, so many limitations that they have with this, but thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if you want to see more content from ATF Gaming, be sure to hit that red subscribe button. It really means a lot to me, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.